Chapter 7. Prisoner's Prison. King Lu City. The dried corpse outside the city was fished out, and more people surrounded it. There were 2 bloody holes at the neck, and the blood had been pumped clean. Who recognizes who these 10 dry corpses are? All dried up like this, and soaked with water. Who recognizes them, however? Surely they are my King Lu City guards. Weren't they imprisoned by the Yuan soldiers? This bloody hole is bitten by a bat demon. No, a vampire. Vampire. That group of Yuan soldiers. Countless people talked. Tang Chu did a simple makeup, and also stood amongst the crowd, not far away. A group of people seemed to be sorting out their expressions in general. Tang Chu looked towards that small group of people. Gently nodded her head. That group of people seemed to receive a signal. My son or? How did you die so tragically? It was my nephew. That year he had just broken through the Jindan realm. The Yuan soldiers went back on their words and only said that they were imprisoned. They all lied to us. The Yuan soldiers are eating them. After they finish eating my nephew, they are going to turn around and go after us. Devil who drinks human blood, you return my grandfather. Woo 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 woo. A group of people kept crying and mourning, constantly pouring sewage on the Yuan soldiers. For a while, the people surrounding the onlookers also panicked inside. 1 million defenders, really eaten, not imprisoned. Eaten for 10 years. After 10 years, will they turn on us? They are the ones who drink human blood. Aunt Zhong, this dried corpse is like this. Can you recognize it as your son? Someone questioned. I don't know, but can you guarantee it's not my son? These dry corpses are only the ones that have been found. There are still those that haven't been found. Can you guarantee that it will not be my son? Back then, when the Zhengjin sect sent troops to King Lu City, my 3 younger brothers and 1 son sacrificed their lives to protect King Lu City from being slaughtered by the Zhengjin sect, in order to save the people of the whole city. And now the last youngest son has also been sucked into a dry corpse by the Yuan soldiers. I've had such a hard life, and you're still doubting me. Woo, Zhong Danyang cried in grief. The person who questioned Zhong Danyang just now was also reprimanded by the surrounding people. Impersonal thing, what's wrong with you, Dame Zhong? Excusing vampires everywhere. Bah, do you still want to be shameless? Back then, we were almost massacred. How many of Zhong Danyang's family died trying to defend the city? And you still doubt her? Yuan dog, cold-blooded animal. At once, the original questioning voices disappeared. Tang Chu specifically found some crying family members, but they were crying to the heavens, and this sadness and fear quickly fermented towards the city. More and more people were attracted to the city. And those who didn't come also got the news, expecting how the city lord would respond. The news did spread quickly into the city lord's mansion. A large number of officials were all invited to the city lord's mansion hall. Boom! The city lord knocked over a vase and coldly looked at the crowd of subordinates. Who is it, whose people can't keep their mouths shut? Don't you remember the holy decree? Bold things. His Majesty told us to do our best to pacify the people and assimilate them. Who can't control their mouths and actually sucked blood from that group of guards. The prisoners aren't enough for you to drink. And then dump them in the wilderness. Who is it? The crowd of officials didn't dare to chime in. City Lord, now that there's a lot of noise, why don't we first block off the 10 dried corpses outside the city, lest the people's grievances grow? What else do you need to say? The dried corpses definitely need to be blocked off, but blocking them off will inevitably cause an even bigger backlash. Find out for me. Find out who it is. I want him dead. The city lord glared and roared. The crowd of officials didn't dare to speak. Originally sent to assimilate King Lu City, but it was a fat job. 10 years later, each of the CVs would be very good looking, with countless merits, but if there was a mistake, His Majesty would surely blame it. And at that time, it wasn't a matter of merit, but a serious dereliction of duty. Report. Steeply, a guard rushed into the Great Hall. The crowd looked over. Reporting to the city lord. News just came from King Lu prison. 1,366,425 prisoners. Not a single one missing. That guard reported. Everyone in the great hall's face changed. Not a single one missing. Then whose are the 10 dry corpses outside the city? Still wearing the guard's clothes. The city lord frowned. Someone did this on purpose, to frame us. Everyone in the great hall was in shock and looked at the city lord together. Go and count them again. Count them carefully, the city lord said in a deep voice. Yes, those dry corpses outside the city. Where did they come from? Could they be framed on us by the great Jin dynasty? Most likely, only the great Jin dynasty would dare to play this tricky trick. City lord, what about the dry corpses outside the city? Don't move, since those dry corpses are framing us. Don't move them yet. Give me an investigation. Who did it? And give me a thorough investigation. What outsiders are there? Yes. The news of the dry corpses continued to ferment. The people in the city had different attitudes. Some were horrified, while others didn't believe it at all. But, no matter what, in a short period of time, the news of the dry corpses was spreading into all parts of the city. Nearly all the people who were adults heard the news. The news simply couldn't be blocked. Millions of prisoners. There are families with families, probably only 300,000 people. 300,000 family members, certainly the first time to come to check. One by one, worried, which has a large number of non-stop crying in the middle of morning, and organized to go to the city lord's mansion. City lord, release my loved ones. Murdering devil, return my son. If you are capable of killing me, kill me. You guys said my son is still alive. Show me, show me. Oh, prison cells can also be visited. Why can't we? All of you. A steep bellow came out from the city lord's mansion, and through amplification, it traveled in all directions. The people of the entire city fell silent. I'll give all of you an assurance that your relatives and military dependents, everything is as safe as it can be, and that the dry corpses outside the city all a conspiracy of outlaws. The voice of the city lord came out. What about my son? What about my grandfather? A cry went up from the countless relatives of the prisoner army. Starting tomorrow, visits to the prison will be allowed in batches. 100 people will visit the prison every day. Go to the penitentiary hall to register. Those who arrive first will visit the prison first. The city lord's voice came out. Boom. The families of the prisoner army were suddenly excited and rushed towards the penitentiary hall to register. A vampire furor suddenly dissipated. Visiting the prison was allowed. So what the city lord said should be true. Someone deliberately framed the city lord. The families of the prisoner army, on the other hand, were ecstatic. Guhai stood in the middle of the first floor of this street, looking in the direction of the city lord's mansion, revealing a light smile. Your Majesty, the prisoner army prison is going to be exposed. Tang Chu smiled respectfully. Go and set it up. Also, every batch of relatives, record them. Get ready to start. Guhai nodded. Yes. King Lu City's prison visits began. The other 11 cities, either before or after, were doing the same thing. A prison visit completely defused the crisis, and the Yuan army was left high and dry. Everything resumed as before. In front of the truth, all conspiracies and tricks were a joke. Nevertheless, the Lord of King Lu City wrote the news in a sanga and sent it back towards the Yuan dynasty, capital, and the northern expedition city. The first batch of 100 relatives was substituted into an extremely remote area of the city's great formation. They watched by a group of Yuan soldiers, saw their relatives. The first batch of 100 relatives came out of the prison with joy. Well, how was it? Countless people in the outside world were in the midst of their expectant vigil. It's fine. My son is living well inside. It's just that his cultivation has been sealed, And he's been an ordinary person for 10 years. He's still fine. No one has been hurt. My grandfather wants me to cultivate well. Wait 10 years to check my cultivation. The first batch of 100 people came out. The last trace of worry in the hearts of the people eliminated. Originally, really everything is false. The second batch, the third batch of people, went to visit the prison one after another. The people had no more worries. Prison area. It seems to be a living area for mortals, with millions of original guards living together. A few of them who had been visited in prison gathered together at a small mountain pass. My family head sent a letter asking us to cooperate. What do you all think? One of them whispered. Although my family master didn't mention who will help us, I will definitely listen to my family master. Me too. HMPH. Back then, my family went through a lot of trouble to make me a lieutenant, and now that I've become a prisoner, I'll have nothing to show for it in 10 years. The family side is trying to find a way to help us lift the seal. Brothers, in the past we killed the enemy together. Now we're having an inside-out battle to regain everything we have. Do you dare? Dare is dare, but not everyone thinks this way, right? Nowadays, these millions of us are already scattered. My family stuffed me with a curtsays. The first one is to convince the old city lord. He is also imprisoned here. He must be resentful. The condition after the curtsays is that he will continue to be the city lord in the future. I don't believe that he won't be moved. If he isn't, and doesn't cooperate with us, then we will think of a way to take his place. With the whole army approach of yesteryear, layer by layer to manage, countermeasures written on the book, try to countermeasure some prestigious generals. After we go out, all of us will be reinstated in our official positions and rewarded on the basis of merit. As for other small soldiers, temporarily do not let them know. In case there are many mouths to feed, time is limited. As soon as possible. Good. The rebellion in the prison was in progress. The prison is heavily guarded. Guhai looked towards the foggy prison area in the distance. Yes, it's guarded by a large number of Yuan soldiers, and a formation has been set up, which encompasses the ground, so digging tunnels won't get you in, Tang Chu explained. Guhai nodded and smiled. It's good to know the place. Yes. The seal of the million prisoner army. Did you find out how to solve it? Guhai looked towards Tang Chu. A group of clans and all the prisoner armies have discussed it together. This seal is the same as the seal of the Emperor's Dafeng Ang on the 9-5 Islands in the past. As long as the lightning invoking platform can be unlocked, Tang Chu respectfully said. Guhai nodded. Since this is resolved, I think the inside curtailing has also begun. As long as a group of generals can be curtailed, at most 10 days, the curtailing will be done. HMM. Since this is the case, let's start, unexpectedly. This time it's easier than imagined. Haha. I hope to succeed with this. A determination flashed in Guhai's eyes. Accumulating people's grievances and storming the government. 10 days to ferment. Should be about right. Tang Chu also nodded and laughed. Guhai was slightly silent and said, the people's hearts are not to be deceived. This time we have no choice but to do it. When we seize the city in the coming days, I will then properly compensate the people of a city. Yes, Tang Chu looked solemn.